Just yahoo politics. Here's Raymond again.
Oh, baby, give me one last chance. Won't you please let me back your heart?
Election day. That opportunity for the governed to show the political classes who's really boss. Today we found the sun shining, the park full, but the polling station, well, let's just say, not quite as popular.
I've come here to the west end of Glasgow, a good place for lots of reasons. Part of Scotland's largest local authority, part of Scotland's largest city, the juiciest prize in these local government elections. And also, this constituency at Holyrood last May switched from supporting the Labour Party to the SNP. So what impact, if any, will the political agenda at Holyrood have on what should really be local elections here? You've just emerged from the polling station. What were the issues that got you in there?
Basically to keep the SNP out, and in order to do that I voted Labour.
Were you a traditional Labour voter?
Sometimes. Before the last election I used to vote Lib Dem.
I think there are party political issues more than anything else. Just a bit tired of Labour's negative campaign towards the independence debate, which I haven't heard mentioned at all in the Glasgow City Council campaign, apart from, by Labour. So they seem to be throwing the independence debate against SNP at every turn. There's negative campaigning.
I've got a child who has additional needs, and in contacting previous councillors for help, some have been helpful, some have been not so helpful, so that's kind of been a big factor for me.
But what about the story that's dominated Holyrood? During his evidence to the Leveson inquiry, Rupert Murdoch told us how friendly he is with the First Minister.
How would you describe your relationship with Mr. Salmond? Is it warm or is it something different?
Today?
Yes.
I would describe it as warm.
Mr. Salmond's opponents, often cosy with Murdoch in the past, raised their eyes critically and launched an attack on the First Minister, trying to spread the toxic fallout of the phone hacking scandal to Bute House.
The revelation that Rupert Murdoch's newspaper hacked Millie Dowler's phone was the moment that any doubt about Rupert Murdoch was removed. It was the moment his empire started to fall. And yet, after that devastating revelation, the First Minister became the only senior politician in this country, perhaps the only one in the world, to invite him round for tea.
Mr. Salmond condemned phone hacking and backed the Leveson inquiry. He said he'd only ever exchanged words about jobs, not favours for favourable newspaper coverage from the now SNP-backing Sun.
BSkyB were moving from 9 contractors to 2 contractors, and that carried with it the risks, for security reasons, but carried with the risk of major job losses in Scotland unless Scotland won the contracts. I'm delighted to say, of course, that Hero TSC did win the major contract.
Those jobs moved from one part of Glasgow to another and stayed there despite the News Corp BSkyB deal falling through. What direct link they had to the biggest media deal in UK history still isn't clear. Then, on the eve of polling day, Mr. Salmond was asked,
First Minister, were you hacked? First Minister?
Well, as Ruth Davison rightly says, I'll be going to the Leveson inquiry. I'll be speaking specifically about a range of matters under oath, and that's where I shall give my evidence, which is exactly the right thing to do.
Oh, baby, give me one last chance.
But does any of this matter? Back to the sunshine.
It doesn't surprise me that our politicians should be discussing with the media. And I don't see a big problem with that. If I feel that there's something suspicious, then yeah, it will start to put me off and I'll start to question it.
So, going by our completely unscientific, anecdotal evidence, it seems that the main opposition parties at Holyrood have misfired in their attempt to dominate the agenda linking Rupert Murdoch to Alex Salmond. Certainly amongst the voters we've spoken to, it hasn't really resonated as an issue in this local government election. But I suppose they'll be looking to the long term, hoping that beyond polling day, linking Mr. Salmond to Mr. Murdoch might help dull some of the SNP leaders' electoral sheen.